One of the most challenging parts of the purchase process can be getting your offer accepted. Sometimes it takes a time or two before you actually get your offer accepted on a home. And it can really be discouraging, especially when you're up against multiple people vying for the same property and you get your emotions involved and then you don't get the property that you really thought that was going to be your home. My name is Amy DeBusk, and I am a certified mortgage planner. And what I'm known best for is working with first time home buyers that are savvy and ready to buy their first home, just like you are. And I just want to give you some insider information about what I've learned over the last 26 years about the offer and negotiating the best deal for buyers like you. So, first and foremost, a lot of people don't realize this. There are three areas during the whole process that you get to negotiate for a lower purchase price sometime and for seller credits to cover closing costs. It's not just the initial negotiation when you make that offer. So, of course, the first round of negotiations would be when you make the initial offer. The second round of negotiations would be after all your repair inspections are back. So, after you get into contract, is when you have the right to get underneath the hood of the car, so to speak, and get a home inspection. That's where you hire a private person that's a licensed home inspector to do a deep dive on the house to see, what's wrong and what could go wrong. And then maybe you've gotten a pest inspection. Maybe you got a roof inspection. So when you get all those inspections together, there's an inspection period and maybe you found some things you're like, hey, we got some pest work here and we actually would like, $5,000 back towards our, closing costs, or we want a lower purchase price. That's round two. Round three does not always happen. Round three is when the appraisal comes in low, or the appraiser comes in and says, hey, there are health and safety issues that need to be addressed and repaired, and we have to address those before the close of escrow. So when the appraisal comes in low, we got to go back to the drawing board and see if the seller will drop the purchase price, because all lenders lend on the appraised value, not on your contracted agreed price. So let's go back and talk about, what are the best practices and where I've seen people, the clients make the most money, or save the most money, I should say, on a purchase. And it's not what you think. So lowballing the seller right out the gate doesn't really work in this market. Most homes are priced to sell unless they've been sitting on the market for 60 plus days. Then maybe there is a problem with the price point that the listing is at. However, most homes are not like that. Most homes are priced to sell and are, comping out incomparable to what is selling in the neighborhood. So, if you do not need a seller credit to cover the closing costs to make the deal work, then I highly advise you not to ask for anything that you don't have to ask for in the initial offer. You want to give the seller as many reasons to say yes as possible. And having a really good realtor right by your side that's going to negotiate on your behalf and also do some homework before the offer is made is key. So when the realtor is talking to the listing agent, there's a couple questions they're going to be asking. What's going on with the seller? Have they already moved out? Is it that they need a really quick close, Or have they lived there for 30 years and they've got 30 years worth of stuff they need to, sift through and move out, and they actually need a rent back, where that means that you're going to buy the house, and maybe you buy that house in 30 days, but then you let the seller stay there for up to maybe even 60 days. And I love the rent back offer because you can offer a rent back and not charge them for it, which could sweeten your deal. So that's key. Finding out what the seller really needs and then giving it to them in your offer. And then if, I know people get hung up on want a really good deal, you want a low price, and you want to ask for, closing costs up front. But the reality is if you don't need the closing costs to cover your, the credit for your closing costs, you will get it still, just because you don't ask for it in the initial offer. I, been doing this, like I said, for 26 years, and I've really never seen an offer or a deal go through to the end where the buyer didn't get some kind of concession from the seller through the course of the process. So, when you get that home inspection, when you get the repair request, and let me tell you a little secret. I know they always say, in the listing agree, or yeah, when you see the listing on MLS, as is, not going to do any repairs, not giving any concessions. But they're just saying that really because at the end of the day, when you get in the middle of the contract and you're 2 weeks down the road and you really want to buy the house, and maybe there's 2 weeks left for you to fund your loan, the seller really wants to sell the house to you too. They are just as emotional about this as you are. They want to, a lot of times they have already spent that money in their mind, moved on emotionally, mentally. A lot of times they're in contract on a house already to buy, and they want to be done with it too. So when you come in 2 weeks into the contract, it's a lot easier to get a yes on, hey, we need, $15,000 off the purchase price. Or actually, we need $15,000 off the purchase price and we'd like a $10,000 seller credit. You would be surprised at how much of a concession a seller is willing to give when they find out that you've uncovered things about their house that now they know about. And if they were to say, hey, I'm not going to give you that seller credit, or hey, I'm not going to drop the price, and they went back on the open market and your deal, fell apart. If they go back on the open market and they know about repairs that need to be made because you brought it to their attention, now they have to disclose that to the next buyer. So it's best for them to just nip it in the butt and take care of it right then and there, and maybe negotiate back and forth. So sometimes I see in the middle of a contract where a seller and a buyer are, first maybe you ask for that 15,000 and they say, yeah, no, we'll give you 10,000. So that's where I see my buyers really win. And then the other huge needle mover for getting your offer accepted is when you have a loan officer like myself who's really willing to call the listing agent on your behalf when that offer is made. And my goal when I call that listing agent when the offer is made is to get across three things. Number one, that you are a well qualified buyer and that you are pre approved. We've gotten desktop underwriter or loan prospector approval. We've documented your income and your assets, your credit, and we're ready to go. And then the other thing I'm wanting to get across to them is that the realtor and I, we work together as a team. We're easy to work with, and they're going to get lots of communication from my team and I throughout the entire process for their seller, because at the end of the day, they're working for their seller and they want to make sure that the loan is going to fund. And then the third thing is that I want to build that rapport, and I really want to, you know, make them feel good about you as a buyer so they can convey that to their seller and get our offer accepted. So I have written a article on this whole topic and I've done a way deeper dive on the ins and outs of getting your offer accepted. The link for the blog will be in the comments. So please check out our blog. And also, if you are interested in getting pre approved, we'd love to talk to you. We offer a free 30-minute discovery call, and that is at talkingwithamy.com. It's talkingwithamy.com.